Hey guys, I go by Sam and I'm currently the singer of a band called Slave to Servant. In addition to that, I also am the co-host and co-founder of a podcast called God's Property Radio. And we just wrapped up our last episode of the show, but the website will live on kind of as a different format in that it will kind of operate more as a radio station with a bunch of different programs by different podcasters in our kind of fringy Christian genre, if you will. But anyway, a long time ago, before I got into any of this stuff, I used to be a touring musician and I played in a few different acts from the Chicago area. I sang and I think I made about 10 records in about 10 years span. Played with some really awesome bands and just met a lot of different friends throughout those endeavors. And one of those bands was called Dormlife, and we were going to reunite this winter. Actually, on New Year's Day, we were going to reunite in the Chicago area for one show to perform our very first album that we made 10 years ago, called It's Not Me, It's You. As fate would have it, it just didn't quite work out, so my plans were to kind of use that event to kind of promote something new that I'm a part of, which is called Downwrite.com. If you're unfamiliar as to what Downwrite.com is, it was actually started by Mark Rose from the band Spitalfield and Bob Nana from Braid and Hey Mercedes and the City on Film. And what it is it's a place where you can go to basically design custom songs. You can pick any artist off the site. They have so many different artists. It's quite a roster, and I'm very blessed to be a part of Downwrite's website. For example, if you wanted to get a custom love song written by Chris Conley from Saves the Day, you could go there and do that for a nominal fee. I'm very interested in especially writing stuff that will pertain to the topics that I'm covering in my current project called Slave to Servant. We're writing a new record and we have a new acoustic EP coming out in early 2016. So anyway, if you go to my page on Downwrite and you're interested in some of the stuff I cover on my podcast or some of the topics that I'm talking about in the music that I'm making now, you can go there and you can order a custom song, whether it be a cover song, it could be a hymn, it could be some oldie, it could be a love song, or you can custom design a song yourself and send me your own lyrics, or I can write my own lyrics to suit what you're going for. But again, there's so many great artists on Downwrite's website, some of which that I've personally been influenced by, and then some that I've played with, and it's just a really kind of a cool thing I think that Mark and Bob are doing over there, and I'm honored to be a part of it. Again, since we canceled our Dormlife reunion show, I just wanted to say a couple things about our first record and also give some shout outs to some old friends. You know, all of us kind of have, I think, those local heroes in the scene that kind of influenced you to kind of get into the garage or out of the garage and go try to book your own shows and then eventually tour. And you know, I know I have mine, and I know that there are a lot of people who have said a lot of nice things about some of the previous bands that I was in. So every holiday I go back to Illinois and kind of visit with family, and I try to squeeze in a few interviews with some friends that I played music with or that just were in the scene at the time, just for my own archives that I'm kind of creating in a kind of documentary format. But anyway, I have all these interviews and I figured, you know what, I'm just gonna kind of string a few little excerpts of, you know, what they had to say about my old band since it's our 10-year anniversary of our first record. And I would say that the first record we made isn't my favorite record. You know, I can still listen to it. I don't like dislike it, but as a singer and songwriter, you constantly are trying to progress upward and just kind of outdo yourself. And I think vocally the record really just isn't who I am now or who I became on the second or third record, but it's really fun to hear other people's takes on the records, and especially it was really interesting hearing our bass player kind of talk about his opinion on our first record, which was the Red album. I think that the majority of our fan base, what little that we had, I think the bulk of them would say that the Blue album, Roses Are Blue, would be their favorite. It was just a really poppy record, and I'm very happy with the record. But again, from my perspective, I think that the Yellow album, which was our final and third record, that was at least my best effort. And yeah, I just wanted to say that, and not to try to compare my band or myself to any of these two bands that I'm about to draw comparisons to in any sort of egotistical way or anything. But as far as influences go, I mean, you may not hear it in our music, and I think everybody has different, you know, influences that you don't necessarily hear it. But you know, being a '90s kid, growing up with like that post-grunge scene, and you know, then going into more of like the punk rock scene and hip hop and all the different things that were coming at us at once, it was hard not to be affected by a band like Nirvana. And I would say that if I were to say two bands that have kind of an example, I think of the way that their first three records were, I think about Nirvana and the Smoking Popes, two bands that I love. Obviously my band sounds nothing like those bands, but when I look at their first album, you can hear like the beginning of like a definitive sound that was starting, where the band just had like this original thing. But as they progressed, like with the second album, I think, you know, if you look at like Smoking Popes' Born to Quit and you look at Nirvana's Nevermind, I mean, those are really radio accessible records for those bands. Obviously not on the same level exactly, but they were definitely catchy records. And then when you got to the final records, it was like you had this kind of journey away from that poppiness. Some of the songs had a familiarity, but altogether those records were totally different in a lot of ways. Everybody has their opinions on which record is the best, but I think that when the artist finishes that last, like the third record, just from the artist's perspective, I feel like we're always kind of stoked about the new stuff. And maybe not all of us, but at least for me, I felt like with the Red album, the Blue album, and then the Yellow album, I felt like that was like the pinnacle for us as a band. And it was a great time, you know, with everything that was happening, for us to just kind of end things. Again, I just wanted to send a shout out and thank you to some of my friends who took part in some of the filming of these interviews. And I also wanted to give a shout out to an old friend of mine named Nick Von Brock from the band Dr. Manhattan. Basically, both of our bands got together and put out B-sides from our final records. We did this Hot Sauce, Weak Sauce split 7-inch on red vinyl. And recently I've been kind of reconnecting with Nick via internet, and he has a brand new podcast. It's just a strictly music podcast, but he talks to a lot of people in the industry and gets their perspective from, you know, what they've learned and what they're still learning. And it's just a very realistic way, I think, for people that are interested in getting into music or the arts to kind of see the struggle, because it's not easy when you're living off of like $5 a day on the road and not getting paid enough for gas or not making enough on merch, and, you know, just basically going broke doing what you love. And I think it's a really cool podcast. So at some point, I know that he's talking about having me on there, and I'm looking forward to it once the brand new Slave to Servant EP comes out in 2016. So to everybody that's watching, I just wanted to let you know, in celebration of the 10-year anniversary of It's Not Me, It's You, I'm not just placing that album up for free download, but every single album that I've ever made is up on Bandcamp, and I will leave the links on the screen here so that you can go there and just type in $0 and get yourself some free downloads if you want some new music to check out that you've never heard before. And thanks for watching. God bless.
I don't remember the first time I saw Dormlife, but Dormlife played so many times in Clearwater. I just remember bits and pieces from all the different shows. Because I remember DJ Danu would do such a good light show for him. And between me and DJ, we knew the song so well that we'd have the sound dialed in, lights would be dialed in. It was always such a good show. The first Dormlife record that I got, I fell in love with right away. I knew it was a band I'd want to work with in some capacity, and I'm glad I was able to put out records with them down the road. I was able to book their shows and, you know, be friends with them and stuff before that. But I'm glad I was able to form into like a partnership and be able to work together because I liked it right away.
I was first introduced to Dormlife through J Street Radio. We got a copy of the Red album, and we spun The Saddest Girl to Ever Hold a Martini and Piano Number 3 quite a few times. I handled all the booking for J Street Radio for about 7 years, and we booked a different band on the show every week nationwide. So I was listening to a lot of music at that time. And when this CD came through, it was something that not only caught my ear, but in the genre that they were in, I personally think it stood above a lot of the peers. And the potential in the songs that I heard on the CD were great and have stuck with me my entire life.
It was a much different band than any of my friends have ever been in. I'm not, really from the sort of the punkier scene side of things, so I thought it was odd that Phil was in like an indie kind of acoustic project, but I turned out it actually was like, it was good stuff.
Very unique sound. The earlier stuff was drums, bass, acoustic guitar, and vocals. And they did a lot with just that.
There's something about Sam that hit me, like deep. I could sense the music was more than just surfacey, it was way in there. The vocals, the stage presence.
The biggest part of it was the vocals. It was like a really soulful vocal over pop acoustic music. You've got a metal drummer.
Tattoo Mike. Good guy, great drummer, man.
Playing with the acoustic guitar, soulful vocal. There's just like this weird combination. Phil's playing a flat wound, fretless bass. It was just like, how is this all going to work? And then it just works perfectly. It was like, it's really awesome.
Some reviewer thought Phil sounded like Jocko on a Dormlife album. They compared him to Jocko Pastorius, which was a pretty nice comparison. It sort of made sense though, like fretless, harmonic, jazz style. A lot of harmonics made sense. Him being able to add kind of different elements to the sound, and I thought, that's kind of what worked about the band a little bit, is it was too much notes, but it's kind of fun to see styles meld and sort of come to be something new, and some greater than the parts at that point. So
there were songs on the Red album that I think showed great potential. I also thought it was rough around the edges, but it was the band's first CD.
No, Craig, we don't need that much time. We only got, very small amount of money, and quick, first takes, everything's first takes. That's not the way I wanted to record them, but it's not for me, it's for you. So I did what you asked. I always wanted it to sound the maximum fullest, and sometimes that wasn't in the budget.
But I also think that the potential that were behind some of the more catchier songs and the songs that resonated with fans only got us ready for what was coming next.
And Roses Are Blue, when they added in the piano, that like sealed the deal for me. That was perfect.
Roses Are Blue, that's the second album, right? Yeah. I felt like the album was good, but I felt like it was probably too much of a democracy, that album. Like, I feel like we all were able to do like an agreement on like what it should sound like, where I don't feel like it was as cohesive as it could have been, whereas I felt the first album was more focused in the direction of it, which is because Sam wrote it all.
I recall the first being more organic and the second being like there's a lot more going on. That was my general impression.
It got too much like of an ego put into it, I think. Like, probably me too, but I think Mike also like wanted to make a really big statement of like how good we were on our instruments, where the first album we didn't care about that as much.
December 28th, 2007, I helped throw a show at the Lake Villa, Illinois Township Center. Dormlife was one of the bands that was on the bill, and at that point in time, the Blue album was just released. I vividly remember the show because it was not only one of the first shows that I helped throw in the area, but it was refreshing to see Mike's drumming paired with Sam's guitar playing. And that was something in our area that was different and it was unique. There's a lot of talent in this area, but when I saw that band, they stood out to me. It was the chemistry between the players and the combination of weapons that they chose to bring to the table.
Oh, no, without a doubt. Dormlife was one of the biggest draws we had for local bands over at Clearwater.
Yeah, I saw Dormlife probably half dozen times at least. Clearwater mostly, I think. I recall going to Clearwater quite a few times.
Like, we know that they could anchor any show and we'd be all right. Even on a Monday or Tuesday night, we'd have them play and the show would do great.
So we were really late to a Dormlife show for some reason, and they were playing in the Clearwater stage, just, you know, like 4 feet above the ground or whatever. So Phil was playing this note, and he did this weird, like, you know, big bass run down to a low E or a low D or whatever, I guess, if they were open, and did like a harmonic, like, open tap kind of something on his low string, and went right up to like the front of the stage, and Phil kind of like shoved his bass in our face, so I just like whacked his low string, and it happened to be the same note he played. So it like sounded okay. It was, I don't know why I remember that.
They'd bring out a mixture between college kids, younger high school kids, drinking age people. It was awesome. I think their music just appealed to so many different people because of all the different elements. Like I was saying before, with a metal drummer, fretless bass, acoustic guitar, piano, soulful vocals. It was like so many different elements coming in, and then the way it just all like married together was just perfect.
Sam's really good at just coming up with the vocal. I mean, like it's uncanny. He knows it already. He hears something and he knows exactly what needs to be on top of it. And then to harmonize with himself on record, it's like it's very easy for him.
Sam's kind of like a pop genius, and just had a way with, you know, he was a guitar player and a songwriter and a vocalist, and I could probably say a lot of my musicality that I have today kind of came from that, you know, those sessions, those 2 years. I just learned like a load about writing a song, and just, you know, the way we built it and co-produced it together, and the way this dude did vocals, it was just like super detailed and structured, and that was something I think I was lacking on my first project. I didn't really know how to structure things, and I'm 100% sure that everything thereafter that I know and have done came from the Boom Juice sessions and working with Sam. So that was huge for my development. You know, we were super productive, cut three records, 1 full length, 2 EPs, and played, I don't know, maybe just under a handful of 20 shows. I don't know, 15, 20 shows.
David did his thing. He probably toiled in the studio, and you know, Sam came in and they edited down and they added stuff and, you know, made it weird and then put vocals on it, and you know, thus became, you know, the Boom Juice records that live on in infamy.
Boom Juice!
I just instantly clicked with what Sam was saying. It was something that I connected with greatly, and I think I've wasted his ear enough telling him about that. But at that point in time, it was something that I needed to hear, and I'm glad that I did hear. Out of thousands and thousands of bands that I would hear every single week, something about this band stuck. And I don't know if it was the weapons that they chose, I don't know if it was the lyrics that they said. I think it was the whole package and how it was delivered, and I thought, it's great. I love it. I still listen to the CDs weekly.
The first album was basically acoustic guitar, bass, and drums. It was very thin, which I liked a lot. The second album...
This one's going to be hard. Okay, so if I had to pick a favorite out of all three, I would probably go with the Blue album first, because when I heard it in my life, it was extremely impactful. It doesn't mean that I don't like the other ones as much. I just think that this one hit me at a certain point in time in my life that it resonated with me more than the other ones did, even though I mean, Addison is still like on my top 20 favorite songs of all time.
And I felt like the last one was more, it was almost like where the first one started off more in a punk sort of like philosophy, maybe. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I felt like the first album started off with more of a different philosophy than it ended up being. It ended up being like, it almost came off as like trying super hard to make it perfect, which is admirable. But I felt like it got away from sort of the vibe of what it was first supposed to be.
The grittiness in the Red album diminished once they got to the Blue album. The song formula continued to progress throughout all 3 CDs. Sam's lyrical content as well as his phrasing in all CDs continuously progress, and they get better and better and better. I wouldn't be able to sit here and say which one is better or which one has better elements, because I think they all really do show different sides of this machine that's been growing for a long time. And I think when listening to all the albums in progression, you can hear it, you can grow to love it, and it makes you want more.
Like, I like prog rock, and prog rock is full of tons of but it doesn't need to have, like, the trumpet's cool, but it's like, I don't know if that was something that was necessary, or like a million, I don't know, it's opinion, but like a million vocal parts, it's fine, but I don't know if it was like the original sort of like feel for it. So I think I tend to more of like the more simpler album.
It's not me, it's you.
Yeah.
It's always been a joke to keep things on the DL. So when we're talking about exposure, I don't think Dormlife would be Dormlife if they got more exposure. For example, I don't think these songs would be as impactful to people if in fact Dormlife was Fall Out Boy. I also don't think that Sam as an individual would be the Sam that we know him today if he was one of the members of Fall Out Boy.
I noticed like some of the younger kids that would show up and their parents would take them.
The parents would end up liking it and staying, right? Exactly.